Today we're going to be working on the locator part. It's on page 5-4 of your book. And I want to point out that there are actually a lot of drawings in the book related to this. And for those of you who don't have the book, you're really missing out. I know there's a couple of you guys who haven't got it, or at least at the last time I checked, haven't gotten it. It starts to make it difficult not having the book, and I certainly can't go and copy 20 pages of the book. For all of these drawings that are not at the end of the chapter, the book gives a complete step-by-step instruction for how to create this drawing, and some of the methods are a little different than I do, and some of the methods are also potentially a little more complete than what I might talk about. In some cases, I might give a little more information. So I just want to point out that without the book, you are certainly missing out. Anyway, so we're going to turn this three-dimensional drawing into a multi-view drawing. So in a multi-view drawing, like we did last week with the extrusion drawing that I gave you, we're going to turn this into three separate drawings, giving enough information to completely specify the drawing. So we're going to use orthographic views, where each orthographic view is a two-dimensional drawing showing only two of the three dimensions. So no individual view will contain enough information to completely draw the part, but the drawings combined together will give all the information that you need. And the arrangement and the relationship between the views are very important. So we're going to show a common method of creating these two-dimensional orthographic views with AutoCAD. So let's get right into AutoCAD. You can start a new drawing. Choose Imperial. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our drafting settings. So I typically just come down here and I'll choose Snap Settings. You can also go into your tools and choose drafting settings from there, but this is an easy way to get into drafting settings. So what we want to do is we want to turn our snap on. We want to start with our grid on. Make sure our grid spacing is 0.5 and 0.5. We're going to start with a grid snap. And we're going to go over to the object snap. Make sure endpoint, center, intersection, and extension are on. And I think that's all we need here. Let's go ahead and hit OK. Let's set up some layers. Now, previously, we have been drawing in layer 0. We're going to change that now. So we're going to add, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, I believe 5 layers. If we need to add or delete layers, we'll get to that. So we're going to add an objects layer. So go ahead and create a layer, name it objects. I'm going to make this layer light blue. Layer 2. Hello. There we go. I'm going to name construction. And as I said, I like to make this sort of a darker gray, so it's there, but if we don't want to look at it, it's not very dark. We're going to need a hidden layer. There we go, rename. So F2 is rename. Hidden layer. Remember, whatever naming convention you use, you should always be consistent. So if you make them all capital, you should always use all capital. If you only capitalize the first letter, you should do that consistently. If you capitalize none, you should do that consistently. If you use abbreviations, you should probably do that consistently. Okay, so the hidden, we're going to make that green, and the line type, we're going to go ahead and load up hidden 2. And then actually, while we're loading line types, because we can load all our line types at the same time, let's go ahead and load up the center 2, because we're going to add that line type as well. So the hidden line, we want to make the hidden 2. Layer 4, we hit F2 to rename, and we'll name this center, and we'll make it red, and we'll change the line type to center 2, hit OK, and then layer 5, we'll make this our dimension layer. Remember, typically the dimension layer is the same color as the center layer, and we're going to leave that as continuous. Okay, so now that we have all our layers set up, we're going to go ahead and choose our construction layer. This button, by the way, will allow us to set our layer, or we can double click on it. That will also set our layer. We're going to X out of here. And if you remember, now we set our grid up to 0.5. So we have a grid here. The major grids are 2.5 inches apart. And if you have your book, if you look on page 5.7, we're going to set up some construction lines. So the construction lines we're going to set up, we're just going to start. I'm going to start right here and just set up a pair of construction lines. And now we're going to actually use offset to set up our additional construction lines. So we're going to set up a construction line that is another vertical construction line 5 inches over. So we're going to specify our offset distance, type 5, enter, object to offset is that, and then we move over here, 5, and then we're going to go 1.5 inches from there. Select object to offset. And in order to, if we repeat, we're going to set another line of 5, which is not what we want to do. So the way that we want to do this is if we right-click our mouse, it'll start the offset over again. So I've escaped out of it, but now I'm going to start offset over again. My next offset is 1.5, so I can type 1.5, click here, and then do my next offset. And then I need to make an offset of 3. I can hit escape, repeat offset, specify offset distance 3, enter, and there's my offset of 3. Okay, so now for horizontal lines, we need an offset of 2.5. I'm going to click on this one. Click offset, type 2.5, click on this line, move up, that puts one in at 2.5. Then we'll have another one at 1.5. So hit escape, repeat offset, type 1.5, enter, hit offset, move up, and then finally we need one more at 3. So escape, repeat offset, click on, repeat offset. Now we have to type 3, enter, click on this line, and move up. Okay, so we've just put in these boxes, and now what are we going to do with these? Well, for instance, this box right here is 2.5 by 5. Let's go back and take a look at our drawing. Our drawing is actually 5.0 by 2.5. So let's come over here, go into our objects layer. Now we're going to draw on our objects layer, and let's just draw a box. I'm going to draw a box right over these construction lines. So that is basically the outline of this face. If we were looking at it this face, again, pretend that we're looking at just a solid piece of aluminum right now, or a solid piece of metal. Now up above it would be if we were looking at it from the top down, and then from the top down we would look at a box that was 3 inches by 2.5 inches. So let's go back to our drawing. Sorry, 5 inches by 3 inches. Excuse me. Because we're going to see this 5-inch dimension, and then we're going to see this 3-inch dimension if we're looking down from the top. So we come back here, and we just fill in this box. Now the 1.5 inches is really an arbitrary number here. That's just to space them off. And then we have another 1.5 inches over here to space them off. So this final box is if we're looking at it from this dimension, and in this dimension it's 3 inches on the X and 2.5 on the Y. And that's exactly what we have here. We'll go ahead and draw this box in. Oops, hit escape. Finish. Delete. Okay. So we'll finish that box. So at this point, I'm going to turn off my construction layer. So to turn off my construction layer, we just click up here, and then we click on the light bulb. It goes to blue. And when I come back here, my construction layer is off. So now I'm looking at this. So let's first do a little bit of work with this face here. And as we look at this face, what we see is basically, without going into all the details of the cutout, we have a cut that's 1 inch up, and we have a cut that's 1 inch, that is 1 inch over from the left hand side. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our offset, set our offset to 1, and then we'll click here and put a line in. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. Click here, put another line in, offset of 1. We're then going to use trim to delete these 2 lines and then these other extra pieces, so that we basically sort of have a kind of an inverted, flipped over L. So I take my trim, and I'm going to choose this line and this line, hit enter, and I can delete this and this. And then I can choose, let's see, I can choose this, choose trim, choose this line, enter, and delete that. And then this line here, I can just move up. And now we're starting to have something that looks a little bit like our drawing. Now, we haven't done other things to this drawing yet, but we're going to get back to that. At this point, let's move up to the top part of the drawing. And on the top part of the drawing, let's see what we have here. Well, we have this 1-inch piece here, and that's really just an extension of this. So if we choose line, and actually at this point, I'm going to go to polar snap as opposed to grid snap, and I'm actually going to turn my grid off. I don't think I need my grid anymore. I choose line. I'm going to start here. I haven't hit the mouse button yet, but I'm going to use my object snap tracking. So I'm going to show my reference lines. So I don't hit my mouse button, but I just take a tracking line from here. And at the point where I get to my intersection, so this is my object snap, I click, and then I complete a vertical line up to the top. So you need to make sure you have object snap on, and then you need to make sure you have snap cursor to 2D reference points on. So you should see this on, you should see this on. Here, you can be at 90, 180, 270, 360. In fact, but let's move this to 30, 60, 90. This will make it a little bit easier, and you'll see why in a few minutes. And then here you should be on polar snap, not on grid snap. Okay, so also now looking from above, you see that this is a 3-inch part, and then we have this cutout 1 inch in. So that means this is basically, I don't know, I guess you'd call it trisected, right? Because we have a line at 1 inch, another line at 2 inches, and then it ends at 3 inches. And that actually goes all the way to the end here, because we have this separate feature up here that's also 1 inch. So what we can do is come back to our drawing and do an offset again. And our offset should still be set to 1 inch. So we could simply click to select the 1 inch, click on this part, or click on this line, and what are we doing here? Side to offset. If we select offset, specify offset distance 1, enter, select object to offset, so I'm going to offset this line, and I move it up by 1, and I place it there. And then again, I want to offset again by 1. I can just click on this line again and move it up by 1, and we can do that. So now we'll have 1 inch here, 1 inch here, 1 inch there. Taking a quick look back at our drawing, let's put in these small cuts. So we have 0.25 inches here and 1.75, and that is true on both sides of the drawing. So let's go back to AutoCAD, and what we can do, and I'm going to center this and blow it up just a little bit, make it nice and big. Oh, it's a little too big. I'm going to choose line, and I'm going to hover on this point. I'm going to start moving down, and then I'm going to type 0.25. So now I've started my line. And then I know from here, I have to move back by 1.75 in the X, so negative 1.75, and then 0.25 in the Y. So I'm going to type at minus 1.75, comma, 0.25. enter. And that puts the line in. Now, because I know I could do this. This is kind of interesting. I could do this. I could bring this all the way down here and click here, and that starts the new line. And then once I get it, I can come down to this point here and start moving up. And when I'm moving up, I'm actually getting a tracking line. It's kind of hard to see, but you're getting it. There's a tracking line moving. Let's see. Am I getting a tracking line? I think I'm getting a tracking line on the wrong point. Looks like I'm gonna. Okay, now I think one of the problems about doing this, sometimes you get tracking lines from the wrong point. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm getting a tracking line from that point, and I don't like that. I'm not going to do this. So let me hit escape. However, we know I drew that line there. We know that's where we need to go. And we know we need to go from 0.25 up here. So what we can do is we can click on line, start here. Once we get that tracking line moving up, type 0.25, enter. And then we don't have to do any kind of ats, any kind of relative references, because we know it's going to end here. So now we can just click here, hit escape, delete that line, and that part is done. Looking back at our drawing, we have this circle. Now this circle, we know it's a diameter of 1 inch, and then we know it's located 2.25 inches from the edge, and then it has to be located, because it's in the center, 1.5 inches in the other dimension. So if we come back to the drawing, it's 1.5 inches up and 2.25 inches in. Well, one thing we could do is we could come over here and we could turn on our midpoint, and then we come over and just click on circle diameter, and then we're going to get the midpoint here. Again, I haven't hit the mouse button yet, but once I get that tracking line, I can just type 2.25, hit return, and then type 1 for my diameter, hit return or enter again, and that puts my circle in. Looking back one more time to this drawing, we have these little cutouts. And we're ignoring this diagonal here. And the reason we're ignoring the diagonal is because when we look from the top, remember, we don't see the diagonal at all. So this diagonal is 0.25 inches in the x dimension and 0.5 inches in the y dimension. We have it on both sides. So there's a couple of ways we can do this. One way we can do this is we can just do an offset. We can choose offset, make the offset 0.25, choose this line and move it in, and then just take a line that's 0.5 inches in, so right here is 0.5 inches in, here's 1 inch in, so 0.5 inches in, and draw the line there, and then do the same thing here. Now, one thing I want to explain, and right now, let me look at the snap settings, because I'm on polar snap, but it appeared that we were doing a grid snap, and I'm not quite sure why. And oh, actually, I think it's because the snap is on, maybe. Is that right? No. No, because that would turn off polar snap as well. Ah, that doesn't turn on polar snap, so we're still on polar snap. I think that will turn off polar snap. I'm not sure, but if you don't see that, you can always. So what happened? What happened though? You see, I got a. And let me do this again. I'm going to delete this. Yeah. Okay, so right now, when I go to do the line, I no longer see my grid. But previously, the grid was there. And if I go back to my snap settings, nothing has changed. All I did is I turned my snap on, and then I turned my snap off again. I think that's an AutoCAD bug. But I was able to kind of use it to my advantage. Anyway, you can certainly find that 0.5 inches simply by starting at the end point, getting... Nope, there it is again. It still finds the grid when you're moving up. I'm not sure why it finds the grid, but it finds that grid somehow. And you're able to use that grid to snap, even though the grid is apparently not there. Anyway, once you do that, you can trim by selecting this and this. And at this point, we're going to start trimming everything, right? We need to do a lot of trims here. We need to trim these two pieces off, so we're going to select this for the trim, and we're going to select this for a trim. We need to open up this area. We need to delete this, so we're going to select this for a trim, and we're going to select that for a trim. Now we're going to hit enter, and we may have to go back and trim some more things, but we'll see how this works out. So we want to delete this, we want to delete that, we want to delete this, we want to delete this, delete that, delete this, delete this, delete that, delete that, and I think we still need to delete these two lines here. So we can hit escape, go back to trim, select this and that, hit enter, trim this off, trim that off. So now we've completely separated this back high standing portion from this low standing part. And actually we forgot to delete out the two corners here, so let's go back and do that. We can select this and that and this and that, and we hit enter, delete, 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 and delete. Okay, so at this point I believe that is pretty close to complete. Now we still have work to do here, and we still have work to do here. So the question is, how do we easily transfer things from here to here? Well, some of it is really easy, right? Because you can imagine, we know we can come over here and easily transfer this line directly across like that. Well, that's simple. But we need a method to move everything across. And let me show you how you do that. Let us first turn on the construction line, and then let's actually select the construction lines. So what we're going to do here is we're going to make first a 45-degree diagonal, or I should say make a diagonal or miter line and I guess it is a 45-degree line right here on the construction layer. And then we're going to add construction lines. And what we're going to do is we're going to add construction lines at every single feature. So here, we have a feature here. So we're going to add a horizontal construction line. And we have another feature here. We're going to add another horizontal construction line. And we have another feature here. We're going to add another horizontal construction line. Oop, accidentally deleted that one. We have one at the center. And then this is basically a mirror image on the other side. So we just keep adding these construction lines. We have another one here. And then finally, one here. Now, it turns out you could actually simply add lines instead of construction lines. It really doesn't matter because it is in the construction layer. What we're going to do next is we're going to pull the construction line, these construction lines from that 45-degree miter down. So everywhere we have a construction line, an intersection, it's going to add a construction line going down. And what this does is this transfers the location of all the features from this upper left drawing to the bottom right drawing. And actually, this last one we don't actually the two last ones we don't need because they're just the end lines. Now what we can do now is just take a look at the drawing and then decide, oh, sorry. We need them because they tell us what the edges of the box are. So we really do need those. We didn't create those from this effort. So we can transfer the lines down, and then we just have to ask ourselves, where do we put the lines? Do we put them all the way? Are they hidden lines? Are they solid lines? And how do we go ahead and add them? So looking at what we see here, this feature here only exists on this lower portion. And as we're looking from this edge right here, which we will be looking at when we look here, remember as we talked about how we fold and look at drawings, when we take this drawing and fold it or transfer it so we're looking at it on this edge, this corner will correspond to this corner, so that we'll still be looking at this face. This will be in the back. This part here will be in the back of the drawing. So anyway, what does that tell us? That, and as I'm saying that, I'm switching over to my objects layer. That tells us that this little cutout will be visible. So we need to show that feature as a solid line. And that feature is only going to show up on the lower portion of the drawing. So we can simply, in our objects layer, and what I did is I actually just changed the layer. Accidentally changed the color of the layer. Alright, so I'm in the objects layer, I choose line, and let me just blow this up a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I click here and I just draw my line on the objects layer. And you know what, for now, just to avoid confusion, I'm going to come over here and turn this to 90, 180, 270, 360. It makes it easier because it prevents extra tracking lines from showing up. I'm going to go back to the line, and I do the same thing on the outer edge here. Now, the next line, this line, we follow it back, comes from this feature. This feature's in the back. So that's going to be hidden. So we're going to go to our hidden layer. And this feature, of course, goes all the way to the top of our drawing. So it's going to go the full length of our drawing. So we're going to choose line. I come and draw the hidden line like that. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Draw the hidden line from here all the way to the bottom. Now this line is from the opening. Now you could argue that we have that 1-inch feature up here, but that 1-inch feature doesn't come down. So as we're looking at it this way, we don't see that 1-inch feature. We only see the 1-inch feature here. We haven't put in this 30-degree angle yet, and it's this 30-degree angle that actually causes this 1-inch feature to exist. But it's not, that 1-inch feature does not relate to this opening. So that 1-inch line is only going to show up on the bottom portion of the drawing. So we come back here and we go to our objects layer, we choose line, and we draw this line like so. And we come over here and we draw that line. Now, the one in the center is really just the center line for the circle. So all we have to do is take a center line and we can start here, and what I do is I haven't hit the mouse button yet, but I move up by 0.5 inches and I draw down to the end, and once I get down to the end, I see I'm at 3 inches, so I'm just going to move down another 0.5. So I go down to 3.5. And then I hit escape. So what we want to do now is turn off our construction layer and see what we have. So you should have something that looks like that. Now, we're not quite done yet with the construction layer though, but I wanted to turn it off so you could check your drawing compared to my drawing in case you have any errors. So I do need to put the construction layer back on. Oop. Turn the construction layer back on. And I do want to stay though in the objects layer. And if you remember, I talked about that diagonal, but we haven't put it in yet. So let's put that diagonal in. So we want to put in a 30-degree diagonal coming from 1 inch in. And we can use the construction lines to do that, or to start that. And we can combine that with tracking lines. So let's come back over here, and now let's choose the 30, 60, 90. We're in on our objects layer, so we can click on line. We want to click right here and then get that 30-degree line, which will be 210. And then make sure you get the intersection. If you make it too long, that's fine, you can pull it back. But you want to make sure the angle is at 210 on this side. Ah, what am I doing? I'm in the wrong place, right? I need to be up here. So let's do that one more time. We start at line, and we're going to start here, and we find that 30-degree angle, and we end it at the intersection. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So we take a line, we start here, and on this side, let me move this over, the angle should be 330. 360 is one complete revolution, so 360 minus 30 is 330. And we hit our mouse button to end. Okay, so now we have that. So once we've done that, we can now go ahead and turn off our construction layer. And then finally we can trim off these excess pieces. So we choose trim, we choose this line and that line, we hit enter, delete, delete, or I guess I should be saying trim, 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 and trim. Okay, so here it doesn't want to let me trim. So what we can do, we hit escape, select, bring this down to the intersection. And I just want to check that to make sure that it's really making contact. And it appears to be. Okay, now what are we missing? We're missing taking this cutout and bringing it over to this drawing. Because we've got, if we go back to the drawing, we've got two features here. We've got the feature where we have that cutout, and then we've got this extra portion here. So how do we go ahead and do that? Well, what we can do is the following. In our objects layer, go to line, and what we want to do is we want to really make a line that's sort of the intersection between this and this. So if you notice, I started up at the top up here, and we have the X over there, and then I come over to this point, and then as I bring the horizontal line over, and again, I'm not hitting a mouse button. There we go. As I bring the horizontal line over, when I get to this point, you'll see the intersecting lines. And when you see that, you can hit your mouse button and then draw a line back in this direction to make the intersection. Now, it's also true, you could just bring this line, bring a line down from there and bring a line across from here and do it that way. But this is a little nicer and a little bit quicker. After you do that, we have this point. Now this is the point where the cut starts. So the cut is actually going to start where this intersects the back of the part. So it's going to start here, and then let me blow this up, and I'll probably do this more than once. So I'm bringing the line over, but what I do is I bring my mouse button down to this point, and then bring it up to it's to the point where it's horizontal, and I haven't hit the mouse button yet. So I hit the mouse button to start the line. I hit the mouse button over here to start the line, and then I bring the mouse down here to get that tracking line, and then I bring it up, hit the mouse button to end that line, to make that line segment. Then finally, I bring it all the way down to the bottom to complete the line. I'm going to do that one more time. So let's delete this. So what I do, I hit line. I start here. I haven't hit the mouse button yet. So I just bring a tracking line all the way across to here. When I'm at this point, I hit the mouse button. I then bring my mouse down to this point and then back up. Once I'm back at my horizontal, I hit the mouse button again. That completes the first line segment. I then bring the second line segment all the way down to the bottom. And that completes that portion of the line. Okay, so final things that we need to do to this drawing. We need to add that there's some kind of change in dimension. There's a feature change here that we need to put down here. So we go to our line. We just use our tracking line to bring down a line and make a line there. We need to add a center line for this circle hole here. So I'm going to start up here and bring a line down like that. Well, we also need to add a center line for the circle over here. We're still in center line. Now we could actually add center line, try to do a center line using the center line center mark, but in this case it's easier to just do it manually. So we can just start there, bring a center line up, and then do the same thing. Reference from here, pull the tracking line out, start on one end, bring it to the other side, and end. And then finally, we need to add a hidden line from here and bring it down to show that something is going on inside this piece as we're looking from this direction, and that is that the cut or the opening is ending. So this shows that the cut or the opening is ending here. So those are the three features on the side. We have this relief. So this says that there's something changing as you're looking at this edge. This says that there's a hole here. And then this says that this is the end of the hole. So if there were only a hole, and not a complete cutout, then we would actually have a green line there and a green line over here somewhere. But since we have a full cutout, then we only have this one hidden line over here. Okay, so there's our drawing. Now we have to go and dimension it. So dimensioning it is not typically tricky, but you need to think about exactly how to put the dimensions in. And let's see, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at our drawing. Actually, I'm going to stop the video and I'm going to make a separate drawing or a separate video for the dimensions. So at this point, you should just save your file. So File, Save As, and I'm going to call this 5-4 locator. And save it.